Vowels, an introduction. Originally, written Hebrew had no vowels. The vowels were simply supplied by the reader as the text was read. Over time, however, a couple of systems, two main systems of writing Hebrew vowels developed. The first is known as historically long vowels, and this was a system that used a few consonants to mark vowels, especially at the ends of words, and then later in the middle as well. Much later, a system of writing vowels known as the Mathematic pointing system developed, and this was in response to the fact that people were starting to forget how to pronounce Hebrew because it was falling out of use. And when the Masoretes wrote their vowels, they didn't want to disturb the consonantal text. And so in order not to disturb it, they wrote their vowels for the most part underneath the consonants, sometimes in the middle, sometimes above. So let's look at these systems. The Masoretes, or not the Masoretes, the historically long vowels that developed first used three consonants: the He, the Yud, and the Vav. The He was used for A vowels, the Yud was used for EI vowels, and the Vav was used for OU vowels. Now let's draw some lines here. Let's draw another one here and here. What I'm drawing here is a chart. This is a chart that I got from my first Hebrew teacher. He got it from his teacher. I've found it to be very useful pedagogically, useful for reading, for pronouncing the vowels. In later modules, I'll talk about this in a more full way. I'll nuance this a bit, but for the purposes of reading, for pronouncing these vowels, this I've found very useful. And let me put the vowels in now. We'll do it in a different color. So our vowels in Hebrew divide up into three groups. We have our A vowels that follow this mater here. These three consonants are called maters, or mater lectionis, when they are used as vowels. Mater means mother. Maters lectionis means mother of reading, and it was called that. It's a Latin term. It was called that because they assisted people in reading. So the Hebrew vowels, which divide up into three groups, as you see here: A vowels, IE vowels, OU vowels, they fall under the three main maters that the original historically long vowel system used. Now down here I'm going to write the Masoretic system. Remember, we have basically two systems. So the Masoretic system, I'll put the long vowels here, long tone vowels, and there's short tone vowels here. Long tone means it's long in terms of how you say it. The tone is long. Do not confuse that with historically long. When people say historically long vowels, what they're talking about are these consonants when they're used as vowels, the usage of consonants as vowels. Long tone simply is how you say it. So let's start with the first one. The first A vowel here is a kametz, and it looks like this, like a little T, and sits under the consonant. It's called a kametz, and it is pronounced A as in father. A as in father. The short A is a little line that sits under the consonant, and it's called a patach, and the short A is pronounced as an after or bat. Now in modern Hebrew, this distinction isn't really maintained, it seems. I don't pronounce these any differently anymore. I say them both A, as in the Hebrew word pakad. Pakad has the first vowel is the kametz. The second vowel is the patach. I pronounce them the same. When you're first learning Hebrew, it may be useful to pronounce them differently in order to distinguish the vowels for spelling purposes. That's up to you what you want to do there. But eventually, if you listen to modern Hebrew readings of the biblical text, it's going to blur. And in my experience, most teachers tend not to distinguish it anyway. So those are our A vowels, kametz and patach. The E vowels are tsere and sagol. Our tsere is two dots. It's a long E, and it is pronounced A as in they, the English word they. And the short vowel, the sagol, is pronounced E as in bet. E as in bet. Now the tsere, up here, will sometimes have a yud with it. This is the yud. You can see the yud right here. The yud is there because it was put there originally to mark this vowel. So sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. In both cases, though, whether it is there or it isn't there, it's pronounced the same. They're both pronounced A as in they. If it is there, it's called a tsere yud. If it isn't there, it's just called a tsere. So let me put little brackets around here. The brackets are to remind us that it may or may not be there, but you still pronounce it the same way. Okay, let's go over to our I vowels. The I, the long I, is the Hittite yud, and it's written like this, Hittite yud. And it is pronounced E as in machine, E as in machine. The short I is simply the Hittite. This was Hittite yud, and this is Hittite. And it sits under the consonant. The consonant up here would sit over here for the Hittite yud. For the Hittite, the consonant would sit here. The Hittite is short. The short I is pronounced I as in hit. So I as in hit for the Hittite, and E as in machine for the Hittite yud. Those are our I vowels. Now let's move to our O vowels. The O is called the Holum, and it is a dot, and it, I believe, is the only dot that sits above the consonants. Yes, it's the only one. Holum. Now sometimes it'll have a vav. Oops, I drew that very straight. Let me repeat that. That's a little better. If it has the vav, it's called a Holum vav. If it's without the vav, it's just the Holum. So Holum or Holum vav. So I'm going to put little brackets around here, just like we did with the tsere yud. Holum vav may or may not have the vav in terms of pronunciation. And it's pronounced O as in open. O as in open. Now the short O has this symbol. The same symbol as the comets. A different vowel though. Has the same symbol but a different vowel. And it is pronounced A as in on, and it's called the comets hatuf. This is called the comets, and this is called the comets hatuf. They look the same, but they're pronounced differently. In a later module, I'll go through the rules for how you distinguish these in reading. Okay, so those are the O vowels. Short O down here. The long U, have your vav and a dot next to it. This, I wrote that pretty straight too, didn't I? Well, it's a vav with a dot next to it. It's pronounced U as in lure, and it's called the shuduk. The short U is like this, 3 dots in a diagonal line, and it's called the kibbutz, and it is the short U pronounced as in under or cup. So, here we have our long tone vowels, and here we have our short tone vowels. And our vowels divide up into 3 groups. We have our A vowels, our IE vowels, and our OU vowels. Now this dotted line is here, in these 2 cases here, because there are cases, there are times in Hebrew when vowels will change. They'll lengthen or they'll shorten. Typically when you add an ending to a word, it makes it longer. Some may lengthen, some may shorten. There are other reasons why vowels lengthen and shorten. But when they do that, they tend to lengthen and shorten within their family. So it'll tend to go up and down here. This will reduce to this, or this will lengthen to that. These will tend to go up and down, but they don't mind going across this perforated boundary nearly as much as they do here. Sometimes you'll get lengthening and shortening across these bold boundaries that I've written here. But for the most part, they'll stay within their little families here. So we have long tone, we have short tone, and we have some other vowels called half vowels or reduced vowels. And that's why I left a little bit of space here. The most reduced of all vowels is the shava. And I'm going to put it here. It doesn't really belong in the I vowel particularly. Anything can reduce to this, really, or any of these here anyway. Reduced to a shava. But I'll put it there just as a place to put it. The other half vowels, there are three other half vowels. This is not really a half vowel. This is just heavily reduced, shava. And it's just pronounced, it's a short sound, just you can hardly pronounce it. The other short vowels are, or half vowels, is this one. So basically you're taking the short vowel and you add a shava to it. It's called a hataf patach. So this is your patach, this is your hataf patach. This is your segol, this is your hataf segol, and this is your kametz hatuf, and this is your hataf kametz. Now the hataf kametz is a shortened version of the short O, not the long A. And all of these three, they're basically pronounced the same. There's not a lot of distinction here. They're so short that it loses its distinction. So those are our Hebrew vowels. Oh, there is no reduced or no half form for the U vowel, just for the other ones. If you have this chart in your mind as you read, you'll basically be able to pronounce all the vowels. I found it very useful that way.